could see there's a partnership of many groups that are putting this together. Next one, Richard. And I would like to do a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the homeland of many diverse First Nations and Métis people whose ancestors have walked this land since time immemorial. We recognize we are party to Treaty 8 here, signed on June 21st, 1899, in a spirit of cooperation and collaboration between the settlers and the Indigenous. We are grateful to work, live, and learn on these traditional territories. Thank you. So our project partners, Judith, are you doing this one?
Yes, I can take this slide if you like. Okay, so as I mentioned, I am a board member for both Alberta Food Matters and Alberta Public Health Association. I'm also a newly qualified dietitian and a former Alberta Food Matters student intern. So this project has kind of been a passion of mine over the last couple of months. And I'm fairly new to the project, but Wanda, our chairperson, has been working very closely with the Alberta Public Health Association, with Angeline, over the last year or so, just to try and get this project up and running. So Alberta Food Matters works to connect organisations and individuals who have a shared interest in growing food security and food sovereignty. And they work closely with a number of organisations across the province, and they're also a member of the Alberta chapter of the Coalition for Healthy School Food. Alberta Public Health Association are also another not-for-profit who work across the province to advocate for a variety of different public health issues, including healthy school food, and they recently joined the Coalition for Healthy School Food as well. And then next slide. So a little bit about our project so far. So Alberta Food Matters and the Public Health Association have been collaborating, as I mentioned, since about 2020. And so they formed a relationship with the Public Health Association of BC, who control the Farm to School BC programs. And they connected in 2020 with the aim of learning more about the programs that happen in BC and specifically their community animator model. And so through regular partnership meetings, the idea of an Alberta Farm to School project came to life. And then what Alberta Food Matters did next was they hired 2 student interns in the summer and fall of 2021, one of which was me, to conduct research about existing school food programs, find local producers, greenhouses, develop an information database with the types of food programs that are already ongoing in Alberta. We then connected with our other project partners to develop an application for the SIP grant, which we'll talk more about later. And this grant money would be used to launch the project and to hire a community school food animator. And so the Peace River region was logically chosen since Wanda has many connections through her work in teaching, gardening, and environmental stewardship. We also found that through a school food survey, there was an interest in this type of program within the region. So we then developed a series of community engagement presentations and delivered these to various groups, including parent-teacher associations, teacher conventions, municipal councils, public health officials, and local food producers when we did this in sort of February March this year. And then next slide, please, Richard. So our kind of vision for the project moving forward is that we will, under the mentorship of the Public Health Association of BC and Richard, implement a farm to school initiative in the Peace River region. Using the success of the SIP grant, we'll be able to roll out our program specifically in the Peace River region, and we will be choosing 2 pilot schools to be part of that program. And the rest of the funding will go towards employing a community school food animator who will act as a liaison between the local school food communities and the chosen schools. And the area that we're looking at is north of Manning, west of Fairview, east of High Prairie, and everything else in between. So it really includes a wide area of the Peace River region. And then the last thing I should mention at this point as well is we would do, this will all be in partnership with the Public Health Association of BC, Alberta Public Health, and then also Farm to Cafeteria Canada as well. And I'm going to hand us over to Richard, who's going to go into a little bit more detail about the Farm to School BC model and what we're going to try and emulate in Alberta.
Can I just say we've got two gentlemen who have joined us, and it would be great if they gave an introduction of themselves, because John is going to be the principal of this school and is the one who's going to speak to us about his vision for this. So John, do you want to?
Yeah, I think we can see.
Okay.
Hey, can you guys see me, hear me okay? Great to meet you all. Thanks for presenting today. I'm excited to hear what we can all bring to the table. And Wanda, actually Wade, he is currently the principal, will be the former principal, shared Wanda's email and connected us with this piece. So I'm excited to see how we can bring a bit of a vision I have to the table here at TA North. So look forward to today, finding out lots more information and sharing a little bit what's on my vision for the future here. So.
And we also have local producer Denise Simoneau. Yeah, Denise, do you want to talk about? Because he also brought something to show us, just in case we have some time.
If you have some time, I just brought some things. My name is Denise Simoneau. I'm a local producer of honey in the area. This is a subject that interests me quite a bit. So when Wanda brought it forward, I was like, okay, sure, I'll come take a look. So I don't know what is the expectation of me, but there you go.
Thank you. All right, over to you, Richard.
Great, thanks for the instructions and nice to meet you, everyone. There's a piece that everyone can play. So I'm sure throughout today's presentation and various discussions, we'll find definitely ways to move forward collectively together. So yeah, I'll get into a little bit about sort of myself, sort of as to the reason of why am I here from BC, what am I doing in an Alberta related program. It's because Wanda and I, throughout the years, we've connected, and Wanda has been really interested in the Farm to School BC program. So we've been doing this program since 2007. There's been a lot of learning, a lot of growing as well too. Not to say that we want to replicate what's happening in BC and Alberta, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that we learned and that we wanted to share with you all here today, so that you don't make the same mistakes that you did, and that you're on a faster trajectory to getting to where you want to go to. So I'll share a little bit more about the program, about the regional hub and the community animator model. I think Judith had talked a little bit about the community animator, so I wanted to explain a little bit more about what it is. And the Farm to School BC program is administered by the Public Health Association of BC, and it's a program that's supported by the province of British Columbia. So quick introduction of me. My name is Richard Han. I'm the provincial manager of this program since 2017, and I'm also the director of community engagement and food systems. So my portfolio includes healthy eating, Indigenous food sovereignty, food access, dignified food, anything with land use and growing food. That's kind of like the realm that I work within. And I'm also on the steering committee member of the BC chapter of the Coalition for Healthy School Food, advocating for a universal school meal program for K-12 students. So when we talk about Farm to School BC, in the BC context, we fund a lot of different activities. It's not limited to just farms and schools. It's any kind of food literacy activities in between. We distribute up to $3,000 for a startup grant and up to $1,000 for a scale-up grant to K-12 schools across the province, almost on a yearly basis. And with this funding, schools are able to participate in any kind of activity that they choose. So these are some of the examples. Great to see a honey producer. So we have done some beekeeping activities within northern BC. School garden tends to be a very popular option for many of the schools in BC. We're also piloting a school farm projects with 2 school districts here in BC as well too. But this just gives you an example, a menu of different activities that students often participate in. So since 2007, so we've been active for 15 years. I think at this point, we've probably funded over 300 programs across the province. There's about 1,900 schools. So yeah, one in seven schools have received some type of funding from our program in the past. And while there are many school districts and we are a provincial program, meaning that we support all the schools, we have community animators on the ground who provide direct support to 22 school districts. So these beats are the regions where we have staff on the ground who live and who work within the local school communities. And we designed this model because throughout the years, we've learned that a top-down approach of what I might say to a school in Vancouver isn't applicable to a region in Haida Gwaii or Smithers or Kamloops. They're all in different contexts with different needs, different opportunities and challenges. So we split up our province into different regions. This isn't a comprehensive list. We're hoping that one day we'll have animators all across the province, but where we have staff, they're supporting the programs that are funded not only through our program, but as well other schools that are interested in getting their respective farm to school programs started. So as I mentioned, we have community animators. It's often a great conversation starter because when people think about animators, they think about cartoonists. But when we talk about animation, I'm going to read this quote here. Animators place local people at the center of all they do, believing that sustainable solutions are only ever developed when the support of a local community is strongly evident. Animation is about helping communities to help themselves and empowering the individuals within it to make their community a beautiful place to live and work. Community animators are essentially the connective tissue. They can go by many different names. They can maybe a school coordinator, a school community coordinator, whatever that may be. Often what we find is that teachers don't have time to make these bigger connections with the broader community. When we talk about farmers, farmers often have struggles and issues getting contacts and making relationships with the school. And so what an animator does is they work alongside the growers, the producers, the farmers, the schools, the school divisions, parents, community partners, dietitians and health authorities, and anyone who's interested in helping to build a bridge between different people and in relation to whatever project that may be. So if a culinary arts teacher says, hey, I'm planning on making, I don't know, hamburgers, and I want to purchase local lettuce. Do you know of a farmer who might be able to help out? And so the community animator would have an inventory of farmers and reach out and make the connection between the teacher and the farmer. And so whereas if there wasn't an animator, it might be much more difficult for the teacher to find out. The community animator helps to be that connective tissue, that connection that brings the different stakeholders together. So that's essentially the role of the community animator, and which is why it's so important, because if you want any kind of program to be successful, it has to be locally adapted. It has to be driven by the local people. And oftentimes there has to be some sort of, while volunteers are definitely at the core of any of these activities, having a paid staff dedicated to making these connections is something that we found really essential. So I can go into a whole presentation, a whole hour spiel about what an animator does, but here's a list of a few things that the animator can do. And do note that depending on the region, depending on the needs, the activities will differ. So the animator can put on school events. There's an event that we hosted in the Kamloops region. Over 100 students from 8 different schools attended, and we had a whole day session about growing local food. The animators can also help to host teacher workshops. So we work with non-for-profits, maybe farmers or dietitians who might be able to give workshops. We also participate in resource development. The animators can go into the classroom and help deliver some lesson plans and classroom support for teachers. We also host broader school community celebrations, and we have some additional projects that we have, and we support school districts. As an example of a school district support, we helped the Greater Victoria School District establish their school garden policy handbook. So kind of summarizing all of this, the impact of community animators in our last evaluation report, they found out that the community animators help accomplish the following. The animators help to bring focused vision to the region, strengthen linkage with the community, support Indigenous communities, provide a framework to supporting flexible program. The animators provide assistance with leveraging other sources of funding. So the animator also helps to apply for additional funding sources and create space for people to come together. So I know that was really short. That was a lot of information, but that's sort of the general summary of the Animator. And I look forward to engaging and participating in what the Alberta Animator looks like. Thank you. Wanda, I think you're on mute.
Okay, thanks. So Chris is going to talk. So Chris successfully got, sorry, there. Chris successfully got the Pharmed Cafeteria Canada grant. And so she's going to talk to us about her project.
Okay. I'm not super prepared, but just off the top of my head, this is super exciting. I'm not sure how Wanda and I ever got connected with Stars Aligned, and it's just something I've heard a couple people say that you're passionate about this area of agriculture, and I'm feeling the same right now. It's just kind of what I'm feeling good about in my life right now, and I think it's really important, and it really came to light with the pandemic, you know, to source local food, and it's just really exciting, this whole initiative. So I'm very excited to be part of it. I did apply for the grant, and we were successful. So sort of the vision I see is a little bit of everything all over the place, but starting with this greenhouse, we will build some outside boxes and plant and try to establish some berry bushes, raspberries and Saskatoons. And we have currently a food for thought breakfast program, and we do smoothies probably once a month. And so the goal, and I know this will take a little while to establish some good fruit bearing bushes, but the goal will be eventually to grow our own berries for our smoothies. And then inside, I think it's grade 1 and 4 curriculum involves growing and different plant curriculum. So the teachers are hoping to start some plants inside that we could move in the spring, and eventually we would like to purchase a salad bar, what is it called, trolley, and be able to have, realistically in our school, maybe like 1 or 2 June lunches where we could serve like a custom salad type thing. And then in town at the same time, we are looking forward to a community garden, and some of our grade 5 students have a partnership already in the seniors lodge, and we thought that it would be a really nice transition for them. It's really close to the lodge, the site of the community garden, so we're kind of hoping that the kids could start some things in the classroom, in the greenhouse, and then they could maybe do a bit of transplanting and planting in our beds that we register for the community garden, and hoping to do some root vegetable type things where the community will help to look after in the summer months. And then we'll hopefully come back to school in the fall and harvest them and have a nice little addition to our Thanksgiving meal that we try to do. So yeah, it's a little bit of wanting to do everything all at once, but it's exciting, and I think the grade 1 kids are excited to just grow some flowers.
And so because we are getting the Animator, and because Chris has got the Pharmed Cafeteria Canada funding, then the Animator would come to her community and assist the community in seeing these plans come to fruition. So, and Chris's pictures here are of the greenhouse that they can afford because of the Pharmed Cafeteria grant. That's great. Thank you. So, Richard, are you going to go on to the next?
Sure. Yeah, I was just waiting for your cue. Go ahead.
Okay. So, John, you're up.
I'm up.
I had pictures, but you have to click us through them. So, and they're just kind of pictures of kids in dirt and adults, so you could just click them on. I couldn't find a T.
That's okay. That's no problem. Okay, I'll get started here. So I'll give you a little history about how I ended up here at T. Norris Middle School, I suppose.
Oh, I think you muted us, Wanda. We can't hear you.
That's okay. Can you hear me okay now? Great.
Yes, thank you.
I'm not sure. I'll start over because I'm not sure where we lost you. But for the last 3 years prior to this school year, I was the vice principal here at TA Norris. And one of the projects I tried to really grassroots project I started to dabble in was a universal meal program for our students at school, a free lunch program. So some of the barriers that we had come up against for that, one was space. We don't really have a space at school where students can come together as a collective and as a community to eat. So that's one of the limitations of our building. So right now, currently, we are a grade 4 to 8 school, or sorry, 5 to 8 school, and our students eat their lunches in their classroom. So I started to explore some options of potentially reconfiguring some of the spaces in our building to look at the potential of a cafeteria, student gathering type of area, space for the students to come together. The first initiative that I took, the structural integrity of the building for it to meet code wouldn't work with the first place that I had. So that kind of got taken off the table, and the cost to bring it up just was astronomical. So it wasn't a viable option. So then we started looking at a couple more options, and then last year I actually accepted a job as a principal at the high school for acting principal position of a longtime principal who was there taking a year leave of absence to try a different route in life. And now there'll be another transition coming where the current principal here, who I work partner with as vice principal, Mr. Johnson, will be transitioning to the high school, and I'm actually transitioning back here. So I was excited to see that this actually may be able to become a bit of a reality. So my grassroots vision for the initial project here at T. Norris is to really start a food program for kids, so a lunch program for students at school. We currently run a hot lunch program where we invest in local businesses, which is wonderful, and that has its very significant importance to students and the business community. However, I'd love to see a program out of the school where we feed kids from the school, and parents can invest there that way if they want, but also subsidizing it for students who can't afford lunches. So it would basically be a behind-the-scenes credit system that all students have. So nobody would need any money. You would just come up and you'd be on a list and you'd get a lunch, and everybody would get a lunch, and nobody would know who has cars and who doesn't have a car, and that type of idea. So first, the first steps towards that is some equipment. And so Wanda and I have been talking about the potential of possible grants for industrial type of equipment for refrigeration or grilling or whatnot, for that type of gear to convert our current foods lab into a small corner of it that we can produce food at a larger capacity for the numbers of students that we have here, which is about 285 students. The next thing that I want to do is look at building the garden program. So one thing I would really love to do is we have some great green space around our school, and I'd like to convert a little bit into some garden options where we can have students invest in a growing process and bring it right through the growth, to care for, harvest, and then turning it into a viable food source so that they can sit down and eat a stew or a soup or a meal made from the carrots that they grew in the garden. So that's kind of the vision for that piece. With respect to protein, I want to partner with local farmers who may host us as a school and take a cow or 2 or 3 that we purchase as a school, and they would care for it on their ranch that they currently care for their own cows. So this will be a partnership with them. And then when the time came, develop a partnership with local butchery, and they would butcher, and then we'd be able to use that meat to process protein for our lunches. as well as the potential of poultry as well. And then finally, what I would go after is, and I don't know where any of this money's coming from, just so you know, but it's out there somewhere. I would love to build, I really would love to build that space to bring students together. I really feel important about community and eating together as a community. And I have actually done a fair bit of research into it over my master's course, which I'll be finished in just a few months. One of the courses I did was looking at a universal lunch program, a national universal lunch program. And actually in the 70s, there was one on the table at the federal table and had made quite gains, and it kind of got kiboshed. But that concept of just making a space, bringing the community together, and tons of the research talks about the benefits of that. Of course, the benefits of food literacy, reducing food scarcity, increasing student connectivity with each other in the school, and decreases student behaviors. So huge, lots and lots of research out there to talk about the benefits of community eating, and then of course the benefits of the thrill of growing it yourself and developing your own food, and having students learn that you could be sustainable and use your own skill sets to grow your own food, and that carrots come from the ground and not from Walmart. So that kind of concept. So that is the vision for TA Norris. It's grandiose, but that's kind of how I operate. And we'll take it chunks at a time and see how we move forward. But that's where I would love to end up. And how time frame, I'm not sure. I was thinking 3 to 5 years, but I'm not. We'll see what the obstacles are. I'm really interested actually to see what your pitfalls were from BC. So Richard, I'd love to see any pitfalls that you guys came up with that we could potentially avoid as we progress through what we envision here at the school. Any questions for me on that piece? No? Anybody here? Any questions? And bees, actually, I consider maybe bringing bees on board. So, like and having our own honey, that would be brilliant. So, you know, herbs and plants and that stuff would be just wonderful. But yeah, lots of excellent pieces that we can bring to the table. But that's it for my vision for TA Norris. So we'll see where it goes. Yeah.
So, Martine, I was thinking what John is talking about strikes me as what you guys are talking about in Eaglesham, and what Chris is talking about in Manning. And what the animator would do is probably connect you guys. So as you are moving forward, you're connected with your animator, and the animator is connected with the animators in BC, because what if our animator doesn't know? Troubleshoot with BC, and everybody knows. And everybody sees what everybody else is doing, and we all can take, you know, notes from that. Anyway, over to you, Richard.
I think we have a presentation from, Connor.
We do. All right, I'll take it from here. That was so exciting. That was really nice to hear the stories of Manning from Chris. Thank you so much. And TA Norris, I think such great visions, and I'm excited to keep in the loop with those stories. Anyways, my name is Connor. As I mentioned before, I'm the program manager of the Agri-Foods Initiative at the Rural Development Network. So if you are unfamiliar with the Rural Development Network, or RDN as we call it, we do just that. We focus on rural development and service provision in rural areas, advocating for the rural voice. So we have a number of different initiatives, including our homelessness initiative, our affordable housing. We have rural immigration and transportation and revitalization. And I think there's a few that I'm missing, some different projects a little spiced in there as well, but I am the agri-foods arm of the organization. So what I'm working on now is the Pharmed Project, and that is how I met Wanda and Richard almost a year ago, I guess. So what Pharmed is a it's basically integrating agriculture and education, or agriculture into education, in grades 7 to 12. So that's kind of our focus area. Schools across Alberta were funded by the CAP Youth and Agriculture Education program from the government of Alberta. And we are focusing on raising chickens and bees and turkeys. So really what it is we are writing a toolkit, or little guidebook for schools in rural Alberta to implement small scale school farms. So that can look like basically anything that a school wants it to. It's really similar to the Farm to School BC, but we're kind of focusing more on agriculture rather than like school lunch programs and salad bars and things like that. So I've been working with a number of model schools across the region, across Alberta, mainly in southern Alberta. So my model schools, I don't know if anybody's heard of Ontario School or The Farm, but they both have a range of actual livestock at this school. So they've got steers and chickens and sheep and pigs, quails, ducks, you name it. Each school kind of has a different range of what they're growing. And Ontario specifically, they've had the program going for about 4 years. And they now also have a grocer box, which is a vertical growing system or a hydroponic growing system. It's like a little modular farm. And so they were able to get funding for that. And so the students are now learning how to grow hydroponically. They've just implemented a small school store within the school. So that's where they're selling all of their beef and other food products, and some local food businesses are selling out of the school as well. And now they'll sell fresh produce from the grocery box, mainly greens. And yeah, it's really exciting. Things are happening quickly. The biggest thing about those programs that are already existing is that they are student-led and student-run. The students are fully invested. I was able to sit in on some of their the business meetings of the farm that they have at lunchtime sometimes, and it's so interesting how invested they are and how into the business aspect, and they know all the finances of the farm, and they argue about how they're going to spend their money, but either way they're just so into it, and that is probably the most important thing. So we're really focusing on that experiential learning piece in food and business and a number of different areas across the school. So within under the PharmEd umbrella, we're also implementing 2 pilot schools of our own, similar to what Richard had mentioned. I believe they have 2 farm pilot schools as well in BC. So we have similar. And Richard, if you want to hit that next slide, we can look into Irvine. So Irvine School is in Irvine, Alberta, just outside of Medicine Hat. And their program is called the Irvine Agricultural Discovery Center. And they are, so one of my pilot schools, Nicole Neubauer is a local producer in the area. She's a cattle producer. And so she's kind of taken this under her wing, and she's the coordinator. And so her and I are kind of working on the toolkit together. And she wanted to write a toolkit as well. So I was like, oh, you know what, we might as well just write it together and work and kind of put the policies and procedures and templates together for schools to help everybody out instead of working in separate silos. So at Irvine, they are growing crops. They have goats at the school that they've just introduced, steers, chickens, bees. They're working on a vermicomposting system, otherwise known as worm composting for those who are unfamiliar, which is really fun and funky. They have a sustainability and waste committee amongst a number of other committees. I just thought that one was kind of cool, and it's very telling of what's going on today and what we're trying to teach the students. They have a board of directors, so students are elected as board members, and so they're really same thing, invested in the program, and they can make decisions, and they're empowered, their voices are heard, and they have a purpose. That's what we've heard from a lot of students, is that if they have animals at school, or if they're really involved in it, they have a reason to come to school, that's so powerful. I mean, not every junior high student or high school student feels that way. A lot of kids are kind of just dragging their feet and going because they have to. Whereas we've seen kind of a switch with these kids, is they're really enjoying it, and they've said that their mental health is better. They can be outdoors more. If they're not so academically inclined, they still have an ability to shine in other areas, like in the building area, or some of them have engineered these really interesting shelters for the animals. As you can see, there's a picture there of the students helping out to build the shelters. The other picture is of the students taking an ultrasound of that Nubian goat because she is pregnant and she'll be, yeah, she'll be giving birth really soon. Anyway, so that's Irvin. And then our next one is picture Butte. So we can just flip the slide really quick. Rachel, I'll get you to just flip that slide. Awesome. So picture Butte is different in their stage of implementation. So they're not quite there yet, but they have plans to grow. So as you can see, there's just a little bird's eye view of the schoolyard there. They have a ton of land and they're really planning on growing and implementing, and they want to put an in-ground greenhouse. It's really windy in picture Butte, so they want to put an in-ground, and in the wintertime, they want it to be all year round. So that's the plan there. They already have an existing bee program, so they want to grow that. They want to grow their aquaculture program as well, because it's just kind of a little tank in the school. The chicken coops will be built by the shop class at the high school. And they'd like to have goats that they're going to share the responsibilities with the community members, or there's another community organization who's going to take them over the summer. Yeah, so really what's happening is we are just working together. It's almost like I'm acting as a community animator, but just in a different kind of way, different scope, and kind of getting these projects off the ground. The biggest thing I've learned is that every single school is different and has different needs. And, you know, some are very agriculturally inclined and everybody kind of knows and brings their resources together, whereas others have a little bit of a harder time, but it really is about that community support and the student empowerment. So I think that anybody who's able to have a community animator on their side and helping push any project forward is a lucky school. So anyways, that was so great to hear everybody else's stories. And if you have any questions for me, please let me know, or you can reach out. I believe my email address is on that first slide, but please feel free and I can send it to you.
Gee, look, there's my logo.
Thanks, Hunter. And I think next we have Randy.
Perfect. Thank you, and thanks to Wanda for inviting me here. For those of you who don't know, Community Futures is a rural organization of 90 offices across Western Canada, about 270 offices across the country, and we're governed by local boards. We are funded through the federal government, but we are not federal government. I don't have a pension, for instance, so we're not. We don't report basically to the federal government. We report to our local boards. So our basic mandate is entrepreneurship and everything around entrepreneurship. And I was really excited to hear Connor talk about the kids with their little businesses, and I can certainly see where we could help out with that, with business training. We've done some of that in some of the schools on a hit and miss basis. So we'd love to do that kind of a thing with the schools. We have a lot of resources throughout the entire organization, not specifically in our office. There's only 3 of us, but throughout the province and throughout Western Canada, we've got a lot of resources. So it's definitely something that I can see bringing to the table. We also are that liaison between the community and what was Western Diversification, which is now Prairies Can in our region. And a lot of times they will have grants and money available for certain projects that we may be able to put organizations together with them for that kind of funding. So that's basically what we can bring to the table. And like I say, it really excites me to hear Connor talk about the kids who are doing their businesses. Because that's what we need to do, I believe, is get that kind of training back into the school system, and not just on an option basis, but part of the normal curriculum. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to see what we can do to help and work with Wanda. And this is a cool project, really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, because we are talking to High Prairie,
Yep.
Manning, and even Eaglesham. So is that your region?
High Prairie is out of our region,
Oh, High
but
Prairie.
Eaglesham for sure.
Oh,
As far north as Manning, high level would be another CF.
oh, good.
But we work together. There are 3 up in the northwest corner here in Grand Prairie, high level and ourselves, who are very, very active together. So we could certainly work together for sure.
I see Chris taking notes. Okay, thank you, Randy.
You're welcome.
So our first question is, what is currently happening with your organization in relation to food literacy and school food? Food literacy being what is happening in the curriculum that is coming out in classes, and what is happening with school food, hot lunches, snack program, whatever. And then,
Before you go on, joining to that question, I'd like Judith to speak a little bit about what to think about when answering that question. So over to Judith.
Yeah, so as part of my work with Alberta Food Matters as a student intern, I did send out a Google Form survey to 30 schools based in the Peace River region. We got 18 responses, so that's kind of where the data that is on the slide has come from. Obviously, there has been more information gathered since that might be slightly different, but from the responses we got, the kind of key takeaways that 80% of those schools already have some kind of food served during the school year, whether that's monthly hot lunch programs, weekly breakfast clubs, snack programs, daily cafeteria services. We also found that of those that replied, 76% of the schools were able to provide free access to food or subsidize the cost for all students or those who needed it. So it did vary there. And the subsidies were either found in the form of fundraising, grant funding, or community and business donations. We did also find that so the sources of food mostly came from grocery stores or wholesalers. At the time when we got responses, no one was growing food at school and using it in their food program or any of the food that was served. That may have changed, and obviously we did hear from some people that are planning on growing food and using it in their food programs, but at the time of our survey, that was the data we collected. So during this question, what we just wanted you to think about was those sort of things. How are you serving food right now? What are your sources of food? Is food grown? How are the costs covered, if they're covered at all? And that's kind of the 4 areas that we're thinking of in this question.
okay, awesome. Okay, so I will mute, and Richard, you'll give us signals to come back.
Did you want to read through all 3 questions, Wanda? And then maybe we'll just give a bulk, so that everyone can go through it.
So we'll focus right now on the first one. When we get to the second one, what are the opportunities and challenges for us promoting healthy school food in this region? And then the third one, what is the stakeholder capacity? And so what do we, each individually, what do we think we bring to the project? What do we see ourselves doing to move these projects ahead? Okay. All righty. So
okay.
I'm going to go on mute. Okay. I will send it out to anybody that gets the recording. So we know who you are, and so I will get it back to you. And so we should have a very good idea of what's going on in the region and some opportunities and challenges that we can hand over to our animator. And Richard, can you talk a little bit about like when you guys meet with your animators, when you're building a community, can you just explain to us what a step is, where this step is in the animator relationship with the community?
Sure.
Like how would they, okay.
Are we also going to be doing reporting back as well from each of our groups?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I totally missed that one. Sorry, thank you. So I'm just going to run through what we said. So what is currently happening with relation to food and school food and food literacy? So up here, we've got people from Piece 10, and Denis had kids in EQB, and I did too. So they run things a little bit differently. But Piece 10, they had, the division gave money to all the schools per capita to be spent on snacks and however the school decided to use the money. So Peace High has things that John already mentioned, some of the things that he had done with having snacks for the kids, catering a couple of meals, so and some frozen meals for the kids. EQB got EQB is the Francophone school in the region. They got chunk grant funding that the principal had applied for, and they were spending it on, they had a couple meals and a hot lunch program. And Manning had very similar weekly lunch, and you did say it was free, right, for the kids? And the COVID kind of threw a wrench into it because the volunteers were restricted from coming to the school, but the school provided packaged snacks, fruit sometimes, and also Manning got quite a bit of funding from the local community. And I find that in smaller, more isolated areas that often the community are really step up for the schools. The food curriculum, food literacy, basically the schools seem to just follow the curriculum. And really the curriculum is quite good for food literacy. I know I was teaching it, but nothing outside of that. I would say that that's probably true. Yeah. And so can we hear from you guys?
On our side, the virtual side? Well, I think a couple of our participants left, so it was just us and all of us who are partnered on the project. Angeline thought we might skew the data if we added in too much. So number one, I mean, I feel like we all know what's happening in our organizations because we're all kind of working towards this. Unless anybody else has anything to add, I kind of gave you a good scope of what's happening in my organization in terms of, or in relation to food literacy and school food. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can just add to, I think from what I'm hearing from Wanda's side from the room is very similar to the kind of survey responses we got back, was that there are great things happening in the area already in the community, in different school communities. And it's just about finding out what is happening and then being able to learn from each other. And that's the idea of the Animator. So it's nice to find that our data was correct and that there's lots of things happening already. It's just sort of what can we do to increase capacity and keep these programs going and make it sustainable and share ideas, really.
Which is a very nice segue into the opportunities and challenges that we came up with. So one of the things that they're already doing, but it is an opportunity, is they created a health passport, and the kids were given credit for the good things that were in their lunches, and then they got opportunities to go on a trip to the grocery store, say, and they had money that they got to spend in the grocery store, and if they made healthy choices, they got points. Or
yeah, I think it was some type of challenge.
yeah. Anyway, we all agreed that that's a huge learning experience for the kids to learn how to spend their money and what they should buy that's healthy. We have the opportunity up here in Peace River, because we're surrounded by an agricultural region, to do farm trips and to have the kids know where food comes from, because it is shocking sometimes that children have no idea that carrots come out of the ground or eggs come from a chicken. Denis, an opportunity is that Denis is experienced apiarist, a beekeeper, and that he is already working on and planning to come to the high schools and teach the kids about apiary beekeeping. And so he'd already started, and then it's like teachers are busy, Denny is busy. The animator would be the person to help them work on a schedule to make sure that that happens. And the animator could make arrangements between local producers and the schools so that the gardens are taken care of, or that the kids are taught skills. One of the advantages up here in the Peace region is we have very long days, and so it gives us a longer growing season in that short period. Challenge is that it is such a short growing season, and so we have to take advantage of what we have there. And a challenge for Glen Mary is a Catholic school, that they wanted to get the vending machines with the bad food out of the school, and the kids ended up going to restaurants, took their money out of the schools and went and got garbage food anyway. And so to rethink how to discourage the children from eating the bad food without driving them out of the school and losing that revenue from the kids. And there are lots of community volunteers up here, lots of people who have skills that we could use with the kids in the schools, but we have to make a connection with them and get them to come to the schools and help out in their capacity. Is that covered?
As a stakeholder, I can say the biggest thing that I find that is holding back a lot of stuff is the fact that there's not a central, in this case, you guys call it an animator, where we can access and where I can say, well, I'm putting in a tour together. I've got 120 kids coming out over the next month. How do I get a cow and a goat and rabbits and stuff like that for the kids to see, and chickens? Because I don't necessarily have that all the time on my farm, but it would be nice to have a full day where the kids could come out and continue to do stuff. And that's probably why the animator is a very good idea, and what I would like to see. I see that in a lot of other avenues where an animator who's a central location that you can access and say, what do I do? She can help you, or he can help you find your resources all over the place. So what I would like to see out of this project is that help. Getting it out there so that, you know, if the kids want to start a garden, well, let's get a gardener going and let's get that going. If the kids want to do beekeeping, well, let's get a hold of the beekeepers and start that going. I know there's lots of volunteers. Not everybody's coming forward, but if you ask for a volunteer, if you say, hey, Joe, you've got 10 cows, how would you like to have a couple extra cows maybe that would be easy to take and help you? But the kids come out and help you out and do stuff. A lot of times everybody will say, yes, no problem. Or if I can't do it, hey, I know somebody who might be able to do it. And that's where a lot of it happens. And that's how I see a lot of this project going down that road occurring.
Totally. Yep. And that's it for our World Cafe questions.
Great. Thanks, Wanda. And thanks for the comment. I totally agree. There's already so many great things and people doing things. It's really all about that connection and just really bringing those people together. And often the solutions already exist and the great ideas are already out there. So let's capture that and let's find ways to connect. So thank you for that. So maybe I can go to Wanda, your question, which is where do we go from here? So this engagement session, I often do this in BC when I am looking to establish a new regional hub, a new animator, where I bring together important community stakeholders such as yourselves to gain some information about what's happening in the region, what are some opportunities, what are some challenges, and I take that and I give it to the incoming animator. I think I've been speaking all day too much. So I will not speak anymore, even though Wanda spoke way more than me. And I will pass it to Judith to talk about this new exciting community animator position.
Sure. Yeah, so we will be looking to hire a community animator in the coming months. And the job description is currently being finished, and that will be circulated amongst community members within the next few weeks. The chosen animator will report to Alberta Public Health Association and Alberta Food Matters. So basically spread the word, those who are in the region far and wide, of people who may be interested in this role. And we will be sharing what on our social media, on our websites. So Alberta Food Matters has a mailing list. So if you sign up to that mailing list, you will get notified when that job description goes live. And like we mentioned, we're looking for someone that's on the ground in the Peace River region. So share amongst your contacts, because you just never know who will be interested. It can be anyone from any kind of background if they fit the job description and they're interested. So yeah, we encourage you to apply or share it as widely as you can.
And one thing I will add about the community animator is there is no one size fits all. There is no sort of specific education that they must have or skill sets. Really important that they have those school community connections, especially the community. But understanding that not everyone's going to have all the skill sets, but there is a certain trait to the animators often. In our program, they're usually very energetic, very optimistic, very forward-thinking, very collaborative, and very open. We have animators who are farmers. We have animators who are dietitians, teachers, all come from various and different backgrounds. So if you think of somebody that you think would be a great position, great fit for this role, that person might be a good candidate. So that's all that I'll say about the community animators. Wanda, did you want to add anything, or anyone else?
I'm good. I think that was a very good description. Yeah.
So when is the timeline for this job advertisement to come out, and hiring? What are you looking at for timeline?
So we're looking to finish the job description in the next 2 weeks and get that listed and out. And then the hiring process would happen in June. And then the animator, we would look to hire them in July. And then our next sort of session would be a visioning session in July at some point, probably that first week in July, I think was what was discussed. And that person would be hired at that point. And that would be sort of the kickoff of the program and really start getting everything in motion. So June hiring for July start date.
Yep. Cool.
Okay. I should have probably read the screen, and I was looking at my phone playing a game and listening the whole time.
Don't admit that.
Would the animator be a full-time position, or what kind of commitment does the animator usually look at?
So it would be a half-time or part-time position. It wouldn't be full-time. And there will also be AFM's in the middle of trying to hire a student intern again for the summer. So they would also support the animator during the summer. So that would make it up to sort of full-time hours, but the actual community animator would just be a half-time position.
I would just say that this is also just a starting point. As I outlined in my presentations, oftentimes the role of the animator also includes grant writing and securing additional funds and projects. So that can help to build more time and more capacity for the animator moving forward.
Yeah. So there's potentially could turn into a full-time gig.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we started in BC. We had one sort of animator or a manager, and then we started to expand and have more staff on board. So it just starts with one.
And I'm going to say that a big component of this is focusing on, well, capacity building is incredibly important, but also sustainability. So supporting communities and sustaining this type of work. So we, like Richard said, we're really focused on making this into a full-time permanent position and process.
Yep, and bringing more schools in under their auspices, and yep, just growing the program. Yep.
And is the funding fairly secure? Is it, I missed in the beginning, did you talk about, is it
For this-
provincial or
this-
federal?
It's provincial for this year,
Okay,
and it's secure. We've got the year,
okay,
but we need to keep going.
right.
However, I will say, we have got the federal government promising, and so this is both the Liberals and the NDP promising a national school food program. And in fact, the Minister of Agriculture has it in her mandate letter, and the Minister of Children, Families, and Social Services. However, the Minister of Health also has, it's not in his portfolio, but in some of his mandate letter really points to better health outcomes for kids. Yeah.
And also in BC, we also started with one school, a salad bar in northern BC, and piloted that the first year with just that 1 year funding secured. And over the years, we've been able to build and scale up to where we are today.
Yeah, this is really important because we call it proof of concept in the design phase, and to prove that things work and then scale it up and spread it out. So that's why we are focusing on capacity building and sustainability. So,
and that's why we're partnering with BC, because they've already been through it, and we hopefully won't repeat their mistakes, and that we'll get some very good mentoring going forward.